The Velkthar fleet appeared out of nowhere, filling the skies over Earth's largest cities. Massive, sleek, and bristling with alien weaponry, their ships floated silently, casting shadows over entire nations. It was a display of power, a message to humanity. Resistance was pointless. To the Velkthar, Earth was little more than a backwater world, barely worth the effort of conquest. Their commanders watched the planet below with cold detachment, their vast technological superiority leaving them confident this would be a quick and easy victory. They had conquered dozens of worlds, each one more advanced than the last. Earth, by comparison, was laughable. Human weapons, they scoffed, were relics from an era long past. Primitive ballistic missiles? Mechanical vehicles? Combustion engines? The Velkthar couldn't help but find amusement in the fact that humans still relied on such outdated methods of warfare. Their plasma-based technology was light years ahead, with ships shielded by energy barriers that could vaporize anything made of crude metal and fuel. Earth's governments responded quickly, scrambling to pull together every resource they had. But there was panic. Confusion. Soldiers in control rooms across the globe watched as their modern weaponry did nothing. Fighter jets and missiles were launched, but they simply bounced off the alien shields or fizzled out in bursts of light. The military command centers were full of frantic voices, disbelief growing with each failed strike. "Shields at full capacity," a Velkthar commander said, watching Earth's attempts with an air of detached amusement. "Let them tire themselves out with their ancient toys." The Velkthar broadcasted a message to the people of Earth, their cold, metallic voices booming across every screen, every radio frequency. "Your weapons are obsolete. Your defense is futile. Surrender, and we may spare you." In Earth's war rooms, military leaders were at a loss. They had prepared for this moment, or so they thought, but nothing in their arsenal seemed capable of penetrating the Velkthar defenses. The word spread quickly through the ranks. People across the world tuned in to hear the grim news. Humanity's most advanced weapons had failed. And yet, despite the mockery, despite the overwhelming power of the alien invaders, Earth's military didn't stop. Ballistic missiles continued to be prepped in silos. Jets were sent out on what seemed to be suicide missions. Tanks rolled through cities, positioned for battles that seemed unwinnable. On the ground, soldiers stared up at the skies. The towering ships, glistening with alien technology, seemed like gods ready to rain fire down on them. Mothers clutched their children, watching as the shadows of alien ships covered their homes. People braced themselves for what they knew was coming. The Velkthar readied their weapons, confident in their superiority. They would make an example of Earth, show the galaxy what happens when primitive species resist. Their ships began to hum, energy weapons charging as they prepared their first wave of attacks. No need for subtlety here. It would be a quick, brutal extermination. The first strike came without warning. Beams of searing light shot from the alien ships, cutting through the skies and obliterating everything in their path. Buildings crumbled, military bases were vaporized, and Earth's first line of defense fell like it was never there. As the Velkthar ships continued their unrelenting assault, humanity's forces found themselves on the brink of collapse. In a desperate move, a strike team deployed an experimental electromagnetic pulse device, one of the last weapons in their arsenal. It was a long shot, but with nothing left to lose, they activated it. The results were immediate and unexpected. Velkthar ships, once impervious and graceful, suddenly lurched in the sky. Systems flickered, shields dimmed, and weapons malfunctioned. Their seemingly invincible technology, so dependent on complex energy systems, had been disrupted by something as simple as an EMP. On the ground, stunned soldiers watched as the mighty alien vessels stuttered, momentarily vulnerable. It was the first crack in the Velkthar's armor, and humanity's military leaders seized the opportunity. Scientists and strategists quickly scrambled to understand what had just happened. Analysis came fast. The Velkthar had built their entire war machine around highly advanced energy systems. Their weapons, shields, and communication relied on intricate networks of technology that were completely untested against simpler forms of warfare. It was clear now. The Velkthar had never prepared for something so primitive as electronic disruption. They had designed their defenses to counter plasma and energy-based attacks, threats from civilizations as advanced as their own. Ballistic missiles, EMPs, and other conventional weapons were never considered in their calculations. The Velkthar, in their arrogance, had left a critical weakness exposed. Earth's command centers buzzed with renewed hope. They had discovered something no one had anticipated. The invaders could be defeated with technology considered outdated by modern standards. What followed was a flurry of strategy sessions, recalculating everything about Earth's military response. If the Velkthar systems could be disrupted, so could their shields, communications, and weaponry. But the question remained, could humanity exploit this advantage fast enough? Meanwhile, in the skies above Earth, the Velkthar were in chaos. They had never encountered an opponent who fought with such basic methods. Their commanders barked orders to recalibrate, to reroute power, but the EMP had crippled key systems. Energy shields flickered, exposing parts of their ships. Without their technology functioning at full capacity, they were vulnerable in ways they hadn't foreseen. What had been a one-sided massacre now turned into confusion among the invaders. Their attempts to fire back were hampered by system reboots and failing sensors. Earth's forces, recognizing the opening, launched coordinated strikes. Fighter jets and missiles were scrambled again, but this time with precision. Every missile, every bomb, was targeted at weak points that had been invisible before. And now, without the impenetrable energy shields, even simple kinetic weapons could do damage. Earth's military shifted tactics. Large-scale, direct assaults were abandoned. Instead, guerrilla tactics became the new strategy. Teams worked in smaller, more nimble units, slipping past Velkthar detection using stealth, analog signals, and old-fashioned communication methods. Fighter jets buzzed the massive alien ships, launching old-school missiles, which now broke through the vulnerable spots in their defenses. Conventional tanks and artillery, thought useless before, now delivered precision strikes from hidden locations. Chemical weapons and other non-energy-based attacks also found new effectiveness. While crude by Velkthar standards, they were never designed to withstand such low-tech assaults. Kinetic bombardments, like railgun strikes and good old-fashioned missiles, began to pepper the alien fleet. The invaders, confused and disoriented, struggled to respond. The alien commanders, their calm arrogance shattered, now scrambled to regain control. They tried to adapt, but they couldn't, at least not quickly enough. The Velkthar war machine was too rigid, too reliant on systems they no longer fully controlled. Their superiority was slipping, and with it, their grip on the battle. But even as humanity's forces scored small victories, there was an uneasy tension in the air. The Velkthar were far from defeated. Their technology, while vulnerable, still had incredible power, and they were regrouping for what would certainly be a brutal counterstrike. Their ships began pulling back, their systems slowly recovering from the initial EMP shock. Earth's military, though reinvigorated, knew this was just the beginning of a much larger fight. The aliens would strike back with everything they had, and humanity's survival still hung by a thread. The global counteroffensive began with quiet precision. All across the planet, Earth's forces moved in coordinated waves, launching a counterattack that took the Velkthar by surprise. Stealth bombers, long considered relics of a past era, soared through the sky undetected, carrying ballistic missiles designed for precision strikes. These weapons, rudimentary by alien standards, hit their marks with devastating accuracy. Alien command ships, once thought untouchable, were crippled as their shields failed to protect against the blunt force of solid projectiles. At the same time, waves of EMP devices continued to pulse through the atmosphere, short-circuiting Velkthar communications and disrupting their fleet coordination. Alien commanders barked orders that never reached their subordinates. Without their advanced communication networks, the fleet's movements became disjointed, leaving openings for Earth's forces to exploit. Chaos spread through the alien ranks. On the ground, human soldiers adapted in ways the Velkthar had never anticipated. Manual firearms, seemingly outdated, proved invaluable as they evaded alien surveillance. Analog radios, immune to the electromagnetic disruptions that crippled modern technology, allowed Earth's troops to communicate without being detected by alien drones. Small, agile units moved undetected, slipping behind enemy lines, targeting exposed weak points in the Velkthar machinery. Human adaptability became the key to survival. With each strike, Earth's forces adjusted, learning from every misstep, every alien response. Guerrilla tactics, improvised traps, and hit-and-run maneuvers replaced large-scale confrontations. The more the Velkthar deployed their cutting-edge technology, the more vulnerable they became. Their reliance on advanced systems made them slow to react, inflexible in the face of the humans' rapidly evolving strategies. The Velkthar, realizing the tide was turning, began deploying their most advanced weapon systems in a desperate attempt to regain control. Massive plasma cannons, gravity disruptors, and energy bursts that once instilled fear in their enemies were unleashed upon Earth. But now, humanity was prepared. Nuclear submarines, undetected beneath the ocean's surface, launched coordinated missile strikes from miles away, hitting alien ships as they recharged their energy shields. Surface-to-air missiles, considered outdated by modern standards, bypassed alien defenses with shocking efficiency. Every time the Velkthar deployed their sophisticated technology, Earth's forces found a way to counter it with something simpler, more effective. Old-world strategies, once considered obsolete, became humanity's greatest strength. Fighter pilots used low-tech methods to disrupt alien drones, drawing them into ambushes where missiles and artillery lay in wait. On the battlefield, soldiers disguised derelict ships to lure alien craft within striking distance, hitting them with precise, concentrated fire when their shields flickered. Every move was calculated, every strike a lesson learned from the chaos of earlier failures. In the Velkthar command ships, panic began to spread. The once arrogant leaders, who had laughed at the idea of humans using such primitive technology, now watched in disbelief as their fleet crumbled. Their energy shields, designed to repel plasma fire and advanced weaponry, were useless against the brute force of ballistic missiles and kinetic attacks. Their gravity disruptors, meant to immobilize enemy fleets, were of no use against ground-based missile silos and submarines hidden deep beneath the ocean. The Velkthar's confidence shattered. What they had thought would be an easy conquest had turned into a brutal war of attrition. They were now losing. They had underestimated the ingenuity of their enemy. Human resilience, adaptability, and creativity in the face of overwhelming odds were things they had never prepared for. Their ships, once pristine and dominant, were now falling from the sky, wreckage scattered across Earth's surface. As their forces dwindled, the Velkthar commanders were left with a terrifying realization: the humans had outsmarted them. The simple, outdated weapons they had mocked had proven to be their downfall. Each human strike was a reminder that technology, no matter how advanced, could be defeated by strategy, persistence, and cleverness. But the war was far from over. The Velkthar, though weakened, were not defeated yet. In their desperation, they began to prepare one final, devastating counterstrike, a move that would either crush the humans once and for all, or be their own undoing. Every remaining ship in the fleet was called to regroup, their weapon systems recharged to full power. Humanity, aware of the impending retaliation, braced for impact. Earth's defense forces, though battered and weary, rallied for what could be the final battle. The Velkthar were preparing to unleash their full power, a last-ditch effort to wipe out humanity in one decisive blow. Every resource, every piece of outdated technology was put into action as humanity prepared to face the final onslaught. The war was coming to its climax, and Earth stood on the edge of survival or annihilation. The Velkthar, battered and humiliated, gathered the remnants of their once mighty fleet for a final, desperate assault. Above Earth's major cities, their ships regrouped, preparing to unleash all of their remaining firepower. The plan was simple: destroy humanity's population centers and force the planet into submission. The invaders still had the technology, the weaponry, and the ships to do it. All they needed was one devastating strike to end the war on their terms. On Earth, human forces prepared for what they knew would be their last stand. Military command centers were buzzing with activity as generals coordinated the defense. The alien ships were closing in, their weapon systems already beginning to charge. Earth's resources were stretched thin, but there was no room for hesitation. Every available unit, every functional vehicle, and every remaining missile was put into action. The airwaves were full of last-minute orders and final plans. Ballistic missile silos were readied, tanks rolled into position, and soldiers braced for the coming impact. Despite their dwindling numbers and depleted resources, humanity was far from defeated. If they were going down, they were going down fighting. When the first wave of Velkthar firepower hit, the destruction was catastrophic. Cities trembled as alien energy weapons sliced through buildings, vaporizing anything in their path. But unlike the initial invasion, humanity had learned how to fight back. EMPs fired in quick succession, causing alien ships to stagger in mid-flight. The moment their shields flickered, Earth's forces hit back hard. Ballistic missiles, guided by decades-old targeting systems, ripped through weakened alien defenses. On the ground, human soldiers were relentless. They moved in small, coordinated teams, hitting alien landing forces with sabotage and ambushes. Guerrilla tactics ruled the battlefield. Manually operated tanks rolled out of hidden bunkers, launching strikes before disappearing into the landscape. Commandos snuck behind enemy lines, setting off explosives to cripple Velkthar communication hubs. Despite the overwhelming firepower of the aliens, Earth's forces were relentless, refusing to give in. Every attack, every counterstrike, was a reminder that the Velkthar had underestimated the sheer resilience of humanity. While the aliens had the technology, humanity had grit, and it was starting to pay off. As the battle reached its climax, Earth's military command launched their final, desperate strike. It was a multi-pronged attack, a combination of everything they had left. Waves of EMPs targeted the largest alien ships, causing their shields to fail in rapid succession. Conventional explosives were deployed in key areas, hitting the Velkthar where they were most vulnerable. Nuclear submarines launched their remaining payloads, aiming directly for the heart of the Velkthar fleet. And then came the final blow. In the chaos of the battle, one seemingly outdated ballistic missile, launched from a hidden silo in the mountains, found its mark. It sliced through the flagship's compromised shield, striking the core of the Velkthar command vessel. The explosion was massive, shattering the ship from the inside. The debris rained down across the battlefield, and in that moment, the Velkthar command structure crumbled. The aliens, once so sure of their victory, were now in full retreat. The remaining ships, without their command center, scrambled to escape Earth's atmosphere. One by one, they fled, abandoning their invasion as Earth's forces continued to strike. As the remnants of the fleet fled the solar system, Earth's defense forces watched with a mix of exhaustion and triumph. Humanity had won, not through technological superiority, but through sheer will, adaptability, and tactical brilliance. The Velkthar, who had mocked their primitive weapons, had fallen to the very things they considered outdated relics. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. In the aftermath, the world began to pick up the pieces. Cities lay in ruins, but there was a sense of victory that resonated across the globe. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. The celebration was bittersweet. There were still losses to mourn, cities to rebuild, but there was also a profound sense of triumph. Earth's military leaders broadcast a message to the world. They acknowledged the sacrifices made by the soldiers and civilians who had fought in the war. The victor, they said, belonged to all of humanity. The Velkthar, who had dismissed their weapons as obsolete, had learned a hard lesson in underestimating their opponent. In the end, it wasn't the most advanced technology that won the war. It was the human spirit. As the dust settled and the Velkthar were nothing but a distant memory, one thing became clear. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, their missiles, or their tanks. It was their ability to adapt, to fight back, even when the odds were stacked against them. They had turned the tide of the war with what they had, and in doing so, they had secured their place in the galaxy. The story of Earth's victory would become a lesson for future generations, a reminder that in the face of overwhelming odds, it is not always the most advanced weapons that win the war. Sometimes the simplest solutions, backed by determination and the will to survive, can bring even the most powerful invaders to their knees.